Hi everyone, so today I want to show you a very simple arrangement that you can copy at home. So what you need is some cellophane, but to be honest a plastic bag would do. So if you're using cellophane, I need an actual square. Now the handiest way is if you open out your cellophane, you fold it into a triangle shape. Now don't be kind of like real exact, and then if you run the scissors up the side, you'll find then, I'm not going to open it, but when I open that out, I'll have a perfect square shape. I'm now going to fold that triangle in half, and in half, just kind of fold it over a couple of times. Now don't be panicking, I'm going to do this again. So you can see the way each time I've just kind of kept folding it over, and again I can fold it over once more as well. And where the cellophane is a little bit lower, I'm going to get my scissors and I'm going to cut like a half circle, like a half moon. You see at the top there, right? Now I'll show you what that looks like in a few minutes. So watch this time, because I know some of you are saying, what happened there? So you get your cellophane, you open it out on the table, you fold it into a triangle shape, okay? You needn't be real exact about matching the edges. I'm definitely not being exact, okay? And you slide your scissors up the side. So that's me finished with the cellophane. So there's my cellophane folded over into a triangle. If I open that, it will be a perfect square, but you're just going to have to believe me. I'm now going to fold this triangle in half, you know that way. I'm just kind of folding kind of in half again, right? It's easier to do it on the table. And maybe in half again. But you can see the way that part of the cellophane, you see, is a little bit lower. So where the cellophane is that little bit lower, I'm just going to get the scissors and I'm going to do like a half moon shape, right? So there's the two of them that I've just done. So what you're then going to do, apron's falling off me here, is you get it and you open it out and da-da-da-da. That's how you get a circle, okay? And you can see the edge of the circle is scalloped like a flower, you know the way, kind of going around. And here we have another one, da-da-da-da, open it out, and there you have your circle. And I'm going to lay one on top of the other. So that's really easy. I'm not going to use a container. My cellophane is going to be my container today. So what I've cut up is a half a block of foam. And using a knife, I'm going to take the four corners off the foam, just to kind of make it a little bit more roundy shape, okay? And then using the knife, I'm going to trim around the top and just take the edges off it, okay? And I'm getting rounded here doing it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rest that in the centre of the cellophane. And then what I'm going to do afterwards, don't want to do it yet, is I'm going to bring the cellophane up around the floral foam and tie it with a bow, and that's going to become my vase. So just so that you can see what it looks like, and when it's finished I'll kind of come up and I'll gather around it, but I don't want to do that till it's finished. So that you can see the next part of it, I'm going to move it up onto the turntable while I'm actually making the floral arrangement. Now as I said, this is not really a commercial idea, this is more just for something fun, something that you can do at home, and for anybody that hasn't got a container. Now a lot of you are probably saying you haven't got the cellophane either, but really you could use two zippy bags, you know that way, like food bags, but it's just that when you have the colour, where my cellophane will kind of camouflage against the floral foam. But again, you could put some waterproof ribbon kind of on the inside, you could put slices of fruit, you could put grapes, you could use anything at all, it's just for fun. So rather than gathering it up now, I'm going to leave the cellophane flat on the turntable, and there's my block of oasis in the centre. And just to save time, I've cut up a little bit of eucalyptus, kind of like different lengths here, like no particular pattern as such. So just starting in the centre, I want this to kind of like look like a bunch of flowers, you know the way. So just in the centre, like coming up, and you can see the way, that one's a bit crooked there, you can see the way I'm just basically sticking the eucalyptus into the floral foam, no back, no front, no particular pattern. You can stick it in anywhere at all. Don't stick it down low along the sides, because that's where we're going to be, the cellophane is going to be gathered around it, okay? So anywhere at the top of the foam, and that's why I kind of trimmed off the edges, and I kind of found it would be easier then. I'm just going to cut this one a little bit short, it'll be easier to kind of hide it. So you can really see, it's just, there's no particular pattern. I'm going to turn it around so you can see there's no really back or front. And this is like afterwards, this is going to come up, you see around it here. So then, have a look, like what flowers have you got? Like even if it's to go down to your local flower shop, your local supermarket, and buy a bunch of flowers. And this time of the year, you'll definitely get some tulips. And the tulips that I have, they're a bit wild and bent and crooked, so that's absolutely ideal for what I want. So there's like a tulip coming up in the middle of my bunch of flowers. And this bent tulip, sure, we could let that kind of lie out to the side of my bunch of flowers. And this bent curved tulip can go over that side. And this one can come over this side. And this one can come over this side. Now you can see there, no pattern, no system. I have a couple of tulips that are just a little bit shorter, like the broken ones. So again, stick that one down there, and we'll stick that little short one there, peeping over the bunch, not hitting the oasis properly there. And we have another one we'll stick in there. And I have another little broken short one. I'll just bring it over this side, kind of down low. It'll probably be hidden under the cellophane. So I might find a few more tulips on the table in a second, and I'll just turn that around again just to give you an idea. Now I have a couple of roses. These are literally leftover flowers, you know that way. So this short rose, you will stick it in there, and this kind of mediumish tallish one we'll bring up there, and the other mediumish tallish one we'll bring up over the other side. Again, it's just going to be a wild bunch, nothing kind of particular. Also what I have, I found another tulip on the table, but I'll come back to it in a minute. Also what I have is a couple of the Lysianthus kind of cut up. So the mediumish ones I bring around the sides, and when I do come across a kind of a tallish one, I'll bring it up into the centre. So literally just sticking them down into the floral foam. There's a nice tall one, we can bring it up there. Don't bring it any taller than the tulip that's already there, because I want that to be the tallest part of the arrangement. But this is supposed to just look like you gathered a few flowers out of your own garden, because there could be tulips from your own garden, or whatever flowers that you happen to have growing in your own garden, and you just stuck them in a vase. But it just happens that you haven't got a vase, or you're finding it awkward to display them in the vase because you don't know how to do a hand-tied bouquet. So this is where, by using the oasis, it works out really well for you. So again, I have a couple of Germany. I have a few more Germany. So if they're tallish ones, I'll bring them towards the centre. And if they're smaller ones, I'll kind of bring them down lower around the outside. I found one more tulip. But normally with the Germanies, I wrap a sheet of paper around them while they're having their first drink, and I just take one out now, the rest will slide out real easy. And it just gives them a bit of support while they're having that first drink, and it helps them to stand up straight. So it's a great trick for you there, you know that way. And any paper will do, like not newspaper, because what you don't want is the print of the newspaper coming off onto the stem of the flower, right? But like typing paper is ideal. That's what I would have used here, with some typing paper. Brown paper, sometimes when we get our flower deliveries in, we would have brown paper kind of like wrapped around them to support them, and that's absolutely ideal. So just so that I can kind of get a more even kind of effect to my arrangement, that I'm not working over myself all the time, I'm just turning it around just so that I can bring a few high flowers up into the centre. And as I said, I'm using up flowers that I happen to have here at the school. They were leftovers, so some of them weren't necessarily, were shorter, you know what I mean? And I didn't have any choice, because they were just ones that was either broken or they were in the end of the bucket. So that's why I was kind of stuck that I had a few kind of short flowers that I had absolutely no choice. So I'm just keeping them down low. And then any of the rest, and there's another lovely bent kind of crooked tulip. I'm taking off that leaf there. And again, I'm going to stick that one in over this side and let it hang out over the edge. So that's really everything used up. But because my cellophane is purpley kind of lilac colour, now to be honest, yellow and purple will work well together. They're opposite sides of the colour wheel. But I do happen to have a couple of lilac Lysianthus, okay? So because I was kind of trained to get my colours right, I'm just going to bring a little bit of the lilac in and out through it. Now what you could use yourself for a bit of lilac would be the purple iris. A lot of shops that have the purple iris, they're going to be in season at the moment. But also, shops that have a flower called status, or limonium, or the thistles, you know the way. And any of them would work in and out through it. I know some of you might say, well, I'm struggling here trying to get this one in. Some of you might say, what about hyacinths? The stem is quite thick on them. It might be a bit awkward for you to get in. But yeah, absolutely, you could use it. Just use up whatever you happen to have. I'm cutting these ones shorter, and I'm just bringing them around the edges. So it's just to kind of bring a little dot of purple. Do you see, just around the inside of it. So now what I want to do then, well, before I gather it up, I'm going to get my bow ready. So I have some kind of like purple organza. So I'm going to measure out, I'm going to push that over to one side just so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to measure out the organza to, I call this a good yard. So in Ireland, that's a good yard or a good metre. And I'm going to cut it. You needn't be worried about cutting it straight. Nearly cut the finger off myself there. Now to make this bow, to tie it in the centre, you're going to need a bit of florist ribbon. Now you can either use, I have a very pale lemon florist ribbon, or I have like the lilac. I think I'll go for the lilac, okay? So this is just the florist kind of like paper ribbon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear it in 3 or 4. I only need one piece, you know what I mean? This is for tying around the centre, so the rest of it can do for another bow. Now to make this bow, you pretend that you're wrapping it around somebody's neck and you're crossing it under the chin. And when you're actually making the bow, you can't have it wrapped around your own neck. So there you are, wrapping it around the neck, crossing it under the chin, and there it is, supposed to be like a scarf wrapped around my neck. And hold it there. I call this the front of the bow, and I call this the back of the bow. Grab the back of the bow and bring it into the front of the bow and squash it in there in the centre. Now don't try to fix it. You know the way you kind of say, God, it's gone a bit crooked. It doesn't matter. That thinner piece of ribbon that you had, what you're now going to do is tie it around the centre where your finger and thumb were kind of grabbing it, okay? Now if there's somebody beside you, you could get them to tie the knot, but you can see what I'm doing. I'm just using my spare tire. So just pull your knot, tie a double knot at the back, and then you go back. And you can then put your hands in between the organza, you see, just to stretch it out. And if you want the organza to be a little bit wider, you can unravel the fabric out, you see, to make it a little bit fluffier. So it's completely up to yourself. So it's a very simple bow, and even though the tails where I cut it was a bit crooked, and even when I recut it again, I'm just getting the two of them the same length here now, like there's no way that's going to be straight. You can see the way it's a little bit uneven, but it actually suits the bow. So have your bow ready. So we move this back into the centre. Now, ideally somebody to help me would be great, but your Deirdre's on the other side of the camera, so I can't get anybody to help me. So you're bringing it up around your floral foam, okay, and you're kind of like gathering it in there just above it. And can you see the way it's starting to look like a hand-tied bouquet? But it's not a hand-tied bouquet. And then, as I said, if you're struggling here, this is where I am struggling, okay, is you get somebody to give you a hand. So I'm just getting my two pieces of the flowers ribbon, getting in above the oasis. How's that working out, Deirdre?
That looks fine, yeah.
Okay, right.
You're doing
so
well.
I have it here at the back, right. Well, hopefully you will have somebody to give you a hand and it'll be a little bit easier. Pull the knot nice and tight, okay. I'm going to tie another, like a double knot. And I'm going to curl the bits of ribbon that's left over. I'll do that in a second, okay? And I'm now going to pull these two layers of ribbon apart. Do you remember the way I had two layers and I had one on top of the other? So I'm just going to turn that around. There we go. And because there's a half a block of foam in there, it'll hold the water for ages. Like there's loads of water there to keep these flowers fresh. But also, because I used the two layers, just stay quiet there, I used the two layers, I'll be able to pour a little bit more water down in between the flowers, and not too much, okay, but a little bit of water down on top of the flowers into the floral foam, really slow, and kind of use the cellophane like a bit of a nacwa pack, you know the way. So I think I'm all the way around there. Let's look, that looks grand. You could use 3 layers of cello if you want. Now I do understand not everybody's going to have the cellophane. And you're probably saying, with the zippy bag, how would you do it? You know the way? And that's where it's probably not going to look as presentation or professional. So why don't you go down to your local flower shop and see, can you buy 2 meters or 2 yards of a coloured cellophane. A coloured cellophane is better. I'm just curling the ribbon here with the scissors, you know, just so I can get them little curls, you see there with the edges. Or again, you could tie with a bow, tie a bow with it, you know, in at the end. But I haven't left my strings long enough, so I have to tie a double knot. And then I'm just going to tear down a little bit skinnier there just to fancy it up. So there is your little, if you want to call it a hand-tied bouquet, little presentation, little arrangement. That would sit on a locker. If you were visiting somebody in hospital, a nursing home, I do understand you can't go visiting at the moment, but eventually. But even, you know me for the knick-knack on the door, why don't you go and knock on somebody's hall door and leave that on their doorstep and stand at the end of the garden and give them a bit of a wave? Wouldn't that cheer anybody up? Hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Any questions, any comments, post below. Give us the thumbs up. Make sure you share. That's why I'm coming on. Make sure you share. And listen, if you do anything at home very similar, why don't you post it on the page? I'd absolutely love to see it. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.